So I recently posted that video all about comparing the value of cards in SGC holders to the value of cards in PSA holders to see if there's really a difference. And I got a lot of feedback. And a lot of people said they hate SGC. And a lot of people said they hate PSA. And a lot of people said they hated the look of PSA holders or they hated the look of SGC holders. I don't know. I think they have pros and cons. I think SGC has a lot going for it. But I was interested specifically in the values. So one of the biggest questions I got was, can you make a video? Can you look into the values of modern cards, not just vintage cards? Is the value of modern cards closer between SGC and PSA than it is of vintage cards? So that's what I did here. I did the same sort of investigation. I looked back over the last 45 days, which of those cards were ending in auctions and what was the value comparison of SGC to PSA. Take a look, tell me what you think, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe especially, and give me comments because again, if you ask me questions, I'm probably going to either get back to you or make a video to answer it.
All right, so we are looking at 5 cards from 2000 to now about baseball cards to see if we have a much difference between PSA and SGC values. So the first card that we're looking at here is a 2011 Topps Update Mike Trout. Very cool card of probably the greatest player of the current generation. And when we look at it, we can see up here that we've got PSA has quite a few samples, and the SGC, none. For the PSA 8, 2 for the SGC 9, and then we have 1 for the SGC 10. So again, this is the card right here, and when we look at these values, we're finding the averages of the SGC 9 and the SGC 10, which again, because there's just a couple, it's not as good a sample, but it is what it is. So the PSA, the average PSA 8 is selling for $517.57. The average 9 is $663, and the average 10 is $1,500. The SGC 9 is $592, and the SGC 10 is $1,250. So when you look at that, there is quite a big difference between PSA and SGC. If you look over to the right, it is 12% more for the PSA 9 than the SGC 9. And the PSA 10 versus the SGC 10, 23.5% more. Let's look at the 2008 Topps Update Clayton Kershaw. So we have some SGC 8s this time and PSA 8s, quite a few PSA 8s. And we have a 1.8% value more for the SGC, for the PSA over the SGC. In the 9, it's pretty close. Again, it's pretty close. 6.3% more for PSA. And if we look at the 10s, the PSA 10 versus the SGC 10, that is the big difference. So you can see 446.50 is the average, 44.3% more for PSA over SGC. So in every case so far, PSA has been more valuable. Now, SGC 8 on this 2014 Topps Update Mookie Betts didn't have one, but we have a PSA 8 for $22.50. Again, just had 2 of those, though, right here you can see. No SGC 8s. The PSA 9, I had several at $42.30 being the average, and SGC, I just had 1. Again, these are the averages of all of them. So a lot of Mookie Betts in PSA, not many in SGC. But again, that's 17.5% more for the PSA over the SGC 9. If we look at the 10s, they just had 2 SGC 10s, but the PSA we had quite a few, and the average is it's almost 47% more for PSA over SGC. So significantly more valuable in this card. So next up, we have the 2018 Shohei Ohtani Topps Update, number 285. Lots and lots of PSA and just a few SGCs. You can see here look at all those PSA ones. So we have the PSA 10 versus the 8. The SGC 10 versus the PSA 10. We have the PSA 8. There is no SGC 8. And then we have the PSA 9 versus SGC 9. There's a little issue there. I fixed that. So 38.8% more valuable for the PSA than the SGC in a 9. And the PSA 10 versus the SGC 10 is almost 30% more valuable for the PSA. In every single case in the modern cards so far, the PSA has been more valuable. The only time that that's not the case is when we don't have one to compare. Last card that we're comparing here is the 2001 Albert Pujols Bowman card. And when we look at the prices, we have lots of eights here in the PSA at least, and in the SGC. And this is a tough card. So in the PSA 10, we had a few, but no SGC 10. But look again at the values of SGC in 9 versus PSA in 9. 60% different. The PSA is worth 60% more than the SGC. So we're talking about big differences. So again, just a quick summary here. Every single time, whether it be the Trout, the Kershaw, whether it be the Mookie Betts, we have the Shohei Ohtani, the Albert Pujols, in every single case, the PSA was quite a bit higher. Now, when we compare the PSA 9 to the SGC 9 of all of them, of all of the 5 cards. Now, I didn't include the 8s because there weren't 8s in a lot of cases. If we look back up here, there are 5 different cards, and in only 2 of them was there an SGC 8 to even compare. The Kershaw there being one of them. There wasn't an 8 for the Trout or the Betts. Again, if we look at the bottom here, the PSA 9 combined versus the SGC 9 combined, the PSA is worth 27.7% higher than the SGC in a 9. The 10, it's even a greater difference. The PSA 10 versus the SGC 10. So it seems that in modern cards, it's not just the higher end value. It's in pretty much all grades. The PSA is a lot higher. So not super surprised about that, because I do know that in vintage, there is a little bit more of a demand for SGC. People are cool with it. It looks cool in their cases. But when we're looking at the PSA SGC comparison in the newer cards, it is all PSA. Please like and subscribe. Appreciate it.